turn to Chapter 5, Lesson 6, the coordinate plane. It's located on page 395. Before we start this lesson, I want to talk about a real-world situation involving me. 3 years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer and had to go through radiation treatment. When I went through radiation treatment, it's the same thing as taking a microwave and nuking that area. So notice the box. The box has coordinates -1, 6, 7, 6, -1, -11, and 7, -11. Now let's just say that the technician had a very bad day, and instead of putting in 7, 6, he put in -7 and 6 and -7 and 11. That would shift the box to the left, and the new box would be located here. Now, let's imagine what would be in the new box area. What is behind your rib cage? You guessed it, my heart is behind my rib cage. So if the technician inadvertently put negative numbers in, just like when you take a piece of chicken and stick it in the microwave, you cook it and kill it, if he were to nuke that area of my chest, he would nuke my heart, which means he would cook my heart and it would stop, and I wouldn't be your wonderful teacher today. So do you think that positive and negative numbers are important? For me, absolutely. Do you think making sure that the sign is right is also very important? Of course it's important. So in the real world, we use positive and negative numbers, especially in the medical arena. So for those of us that are patients, we're very glad that the technicians sat through the integer lessons and learned their numbers. Let's go back to the lesson starting on page 396. So now we're on page 396 and we need to identify ordered pairs in the coordinate plane. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is the x and the y axis. The y axis is a vertical. Notice when I make a y, I can make his tail go up and down. That will help you remember that the y axis is vertical. The x-axis is horizontal. Again, here's the x-axis. When we write a coordinate pair or a point, we're labeling it x, y. Notice in the alphabet that the x comes before the y. That will help you remember when you're ordering your pair. Now we have to talk about coordinates in the quadrants. There are 4 quadrants. The quadrants start in the upper right and are numbered 1, 2, 3, and 4. They go counterclockwise. Now let's draw another coordinate plane over in the margin. I want to talk about the points and what signs they will be. In the upper right hand corner in quadrant 1, your coordinates will both be positive. Again, that's quadrant 1. In quadrant 2, the x will be negative and the y, let's erase that, and the y will be positive. That is quadrant 2. In quadrant 3, both are negative. And the last quadrant, quadrant 4, the x is positive and the y is negative. All right, now let's look at the examples. In example number 1, we need to identify the ordered pair for point C. So first let's locate point C. And then let's open our parentheses. Again, order pairs are listed x, y in parentheses. So we come over on the x-axis until we're right below point C. And the number there is 1 1/2. Then we go up to the point and read it on the y-axis, and that's 1. So the ordered pair for point C is 1.5, comma 1. Now, we also want to know which quadrant it is in. So again, remembering that they start in the upper right-hand corner, point C is located in quadrant 1. Now let's go to question number 2. We need to figure out what point is located at -1.5 and -1. And I just noticed that I have to reduce the size of this so we can actually see the box. Let me put this color down. Alright, there we go. Now we can see the coordinate plane. So we're trying to locate the point that is at -1.5 on the x-axis. So let's go over from the origin 0, 0, left to -1.5. So we know it's either going to be A or B. Let's look where we're going now. We're going to -1, which means we're going down. So we are right here at point B. So B is located at -1.5, comma -1. Second question is what quadrant is it in? And again, we start in the upper right-hand corner and go counterclockwise. That would put point B in quadrant 3. Now it's your turn. Look at the top portion of the page opposite this. There are 2 got it problems. You're going to use the coordinate plane that we just worked on to answer those 2 questions. So please pause when you're done. Check your answers. A, the coordinate pair is -1, comma 1.5, and it's located in quadrant 2. And then question B, the point at 1, comma -2 is point E, and it is located in quadrant 4. Now let's look at reflections on the coordinate plane. Just like a number line, we can reflect across the coordinate plane. In the case of the number line, we know that -4 and 4 are opposites, and it's just a single number line. In the case of the coordinate plane, you have 2 distinct number lines. You have the x-axis and you have the y-axis. Now, when we're reflecting, you have to determine which axis it's flipping across. So it's very important that you take and you locate your pair. Your pair is -4, comma 0 and 4, comma 0. So that's on the x-axis at -4 and 4. Now we need to determine which axis is it reflecting across. If I were to take a piece of paper and fold that dot onto the other dot, which axis is the fold on? Very good. It is on the y-axis. So it is the axis that the numbers go across. Let's look at the example. All right. In example number 3, it asks us to name the ordered pair that is a reflection of -3, 2 across the x-axis. So we first have to locate -3, 2. That would be the blue dot, -3, 2. Now we're going to reflect it across the x-axis. So again, here's my x-axis. If I fold my paper down, I'm folding it on the x-axis, and I come to the red point. And all we have to do is read it off. Go over -3, down to -2. Now, notice something. if I compare these, the y stays the same. Repeat, the x stays the same. So x remains the same. The y changes signs. That's a clue that we should write down over here in the margin. So if I reflect across the x-axis, the y changes. Now, what do you think would happen if we reflect across the y-axis? You guessed it, the x changes signs. Again, please make these notes so that when you're doing the 3 guided problems at the bottom, we want to reflect across the x-axis. Get it, gotta go. Now check your answers. C would be 1, 4. D would be the ordered pair -2, -5. And E would be -3, 1. Notice that all I did was change the y coordinate. Turn the page. All right, in example number 4, Kendall is building a square fence. She places a fence post at the locations indicated on the grid. What is the location of the post that reflects -4, 4? Well, we first have to locate -4, 4. So that would put us in quadrant 2. That is this position in the upper left-hand corner. Now, we want to reflect across the y-axis. That would put us at 4, 4. So we are now reflected into the first quadrant. Get it, got it, go. All right, you should have gotten the coordinate 4, -4, which is located in quadrant 4. So again, we started here, we reflected across the y-axis. Now get the guided practice done. When you're done, turn on the recording and see if you got the same answers I did. Okay, now it's time to check your answers. T is located at -1.5, -2, and it's in quadrant 3. Number 2, the point -1.5 and 0 is point K. It is not located on a coordinate because it is on the x-axis. So you would write none, or you could just write it's on the x-axis. Number 3, -2, 2.5 is point B, and it is in quadrant 2. Now we're doing reflections. So you should have come up with the gym, and the coordinates are 3, -4. And then for B, the art studio, which is at -3, 2. When asked about number lines in the coordinate plane, there are 2 number lines. A vertical number line, which is the y-axis, and a horizontal number line, which is the x-axis. See you in class.